What the fuck is... Oh, that's just my window. Oh, fuck, what's that? Oh, that's Edgar Allan Poe.
Long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting.
Eternal Darkness is a third-person action-adventure game developed by Silicon Knights and published by Nintendo in 2002. Nintendo, having finally lost market share to competitors that understood that gamers do in fact grow up and decided to not necessarily be pampered with only kiddie titles, decided that they needed a mature-rated game to add to their repertoire. While they bent the knee in their strict standards much earlier by allowing Mortal Kombat 2 on the SNES to feature all of the blood and gore that gamers expected, this is the first title for the company to actually publish an M-rated game. The game did fantastic reception-wise, but failed commercially, making this a tiny little relic of gaming. Oh my god, it's so cute.
Remember me, Alex.
Hello?
Miss Alexandra Roivas?
Yeah, who's this?
This is Inspector LeGrasse of the Rhode Island Police. I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's been an accident with your grandfather.
I'll be on the next flight out.
Ah, Miss Roivas, I'm pleased to meet you. I trust you had a pleasant trip?
Yes, I suppose so, considering.
Yes, my condolences. This is most unpleasant. It's a shame we couldn't meet under brighter circumstances.
Yes, it is. Can we get this over with, please?
Of course. This way. But I must warn you, it's not a pleasant sight. I'm afraid there's not much to see. Miss Roivas, is that your grandfather, Edward?
Yes, it's him. He's wearing our family ring. I don't understand. Why are you showing me this? Can't you check dental records or something? What is wrong with you?
I'm sorry. It's my job, lady. You're the only living relative, and no, we can't check dental records. There's no head. None of this makes sense. There's no sign of intrusion, and there was certainly a lot of force used here. I have never seen anything like this in my 20 years on the force. We have no evidence except for the body, and what's left doesn't say much. We don't have a single clue.
Well, you better find out who did this. I'm not leaving Rhode Island until you do. There must be some clue in this old mansion revealing what happened. I want answers.
So do I. I wish I had some.
You start things off with Alex running around the mansion to get a grip on the controls, and do a very basic puzzle to unlock a secret passage in the study. Here, she opens up the Tome of Eternal Darkness, rimshot, to where we are introduced to the first of many, many characters. The means of which this is done was revolutionary at the time. Even though the level is loading, you're given some light expository dialogue which flows directly into the in-game cutscenes. It's very impressive even by today's standards. In 2002, this was one of the first games to use this kind of narrative drive. To put it another way, it's cool as shit.
Diasit modo prima multarum, si inceptum conficiamus.
Quam primum, Centurio Augustus.
Volo res
I would like to
militaris.
compliment you once more on your battle tactics. Our enemies did not have a chance.
I wish all movies did this, by the way. I would say that this first area is a tutorial level, but I think it's not quite fair to the sequence of additional mechanics that the players put through for, say, all of the chapters to come. Essentially, Pius is our introduction to the combat mechanics. There won't be insanity to be found in here just yet, as this guy is apparently so badass that he's got nothing to fear whatsoever. At the end of this dungeon, you can determine, without being told, that one of these 3 artifacts will change how the game's difficulty will be skewed going forward. Red means the enemies will have more health, blue will cause you to rely more on magic, and green will have a much larger drain on your sanity meter once you gain one. So for however this works, generally everything you gain in the chapters will transfer to Alex in the present year of 2000. Using either the spell or a random object that belonged to somebody in the tome, you unlock another page from within the mansion. In this initial case, Alex only needs to turn around. Once you find a chapter page, you don't need to do anything else but select it from the menu and start the next stage. Something something, be careful what you wish for, blah blah blah. In this stage, you learn how the sanity gauge operates. Once this meter drops low enough, random events begin to trigger randomly. I said randomly twice, and the frequency of this will increase as it gets lower. Each enemy in the game will give you a decrease in sanity, only to be reclaimed initially by performing finishing moves on them. A lot of these effects are great, causing an instant death or simulated soft locked in the menu, only to revert back to the player characters screaming at themselves that this isn't real.
Fool! You should have run. Instead, you will die. Where is the essence of Mantarok? Where is it? I will not ask again, child. Very well, then. You will succumb to the horrors of oblivion.
She's fine, sealing the heart of darkness within her, unbeknownst to Pius. Alex returns to the present world to blow out candles. What the hell is this, some kind of tube? On the next stage, we follow the travels of Anthony, a particularly fucked over character who's bewitched at the starting screen, slowly becoming zombified as the stage progresses. He's also subjected to constant menuing to learn how to combine items in the menus along with how enchanting items works. The game has a rock, paper, scissors of enemy types, and enchanting against that type gives a damage boost to any of your weapons. You can also fix broken items with this spell, but as far as I can tell, this is only used in this chapter and not again until way later in the game. You'll want to affix enchant to a hotkey and use this continuously, since this greatly improves your ability to dispatch your growing number of enemy mobs.
Trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many centuries ago, as is the fate of this world. Despite your faith, there is little to save you from the power of Zealot.
Oof. This kid really suffers a shitty end to his chapter. All these poor saps are getting the shaft so far. They can't all suffer horrible fates at the end of each chapter, right? Right? As mentioned before, you can now access the second floor of the mansion using your newfound ability to fix this single item with your enchant item spell on his broken key. Interesting how the detectives of this crime scene didn't bother with this floor. They got upstairs, saw the door, and said, fuck this.
The preceding program contained scenes of extreme violence and should not have been viewed by young children.
On my revisit, I wanted to show off some of the insanity effects by intentionally draining my meter to low levels. Unfortunately, on this stage, they amp up the difficulty quite a bit, and since I had picked the green artifact earlier, I was in a lot of trouble here. One enemy gauntlet later, and we are set up with one of the most important abilities, recovery. But since we effectively can only recover sanity at this point, it at least allows me to finish this gauntlet without having to restart the entire chapter. This asshat is pretty tough, especially at this point in the game, with the limited magic at your disposal.
Chandra? What happened to you?
Things change, my dear Kareem. But even though my body is ravaged, I await you.
Who did this to you?
You were gone so long. I gave myself to a nobleman with a jealous mistress. She had me dragged from my bed, and in cruel revenge, flensed with knives. As the last blades were drawn across my body, and my blood cooled upon the floor, she cursed that I would only be with another in death. In death, I know the true value of the artifact which I asked you to find, and it is not for us to possess. If we are to be together again, you must make a sacrifice. Without your sacrifice, the world will fall into eternal darkness.
The things I do for love.
Dudes have been whipped for eons now. Some things just don't change. After he's done snowballing, we get pulled away to Alex, who now has the green version of each spell, allowing her to enchant this sword and insert it into the opening. Here we are finally able to see what lies beyond, and it's a spice cabinet. At least we have a new page in there. Brother. The music is serviceable up to this point, but from out of nowhere, this track comes out banging. I ended up pulling this track out of the game and uploading it to YouTube on a Name That Tune segment, since I felt that not a lot of people are going to point this track out and yell, ESDR Stage 4 interlude. Anywho, Max's stage unfortunately shows some of the game's blemishes gameplay-wise. I can't say it. Gameplay-wise. It's hard. Try it once. Using a relatively realistic depiction of flintlocks as one of the weapons. The reloading of this gun is predictably time-consuming, true, but mapping the reload button to the same one as interacting is a strange decision that can and will cause a lot of frustrating moments. Also, you could just use the Z button for this. Honestly, you're almost always better off just sticking to the stabby slashy thing. It's far more effective for most of the game. You need to bait these attacks in melee range for the large enemies, since at longer range they can cast a ranged attack that's way harder to dodge. Mercifully, you gain the red rune here, allowing you to recover health whenever you need, making this a must bind. Our stoutly hero braves the basement levels only to discover an utterly impossible city of monsters tucked just underneath the mansion.
This isn't really happening.
Here he also needs to contend with a rather simplistic boss battle and devises a plan to bring help to this nightmarish abode. Well, I guess he didn't die at the end, but who am I kidding? This is a horrible fate. Yikes.
This isn't really happening!
Without me to open the gates.
Yes, yes. Be quick, lest our power and our faith in you wanes to oblivion. It will never happen. I have seen differently.
I know he lacks eyeballs, but I can still see Pius's 1,000-yard stare from that last line uttered by Uberbitch here. I kind of feel bad for this guy at this point. You then use your amazing powers to open the dresser drawer, revealing Lindsay's story, who ends up at the same temple Elia explored all the way at the beginning of the game, but now is centuries older. After Indiana Owens gets double-crossed, you're treated with a generous arsenal of weapons, making this one of the few chapters where firing your guns is preferable to melee. I mistook this as a background and wasted far more time than I'd like to admit trying to burn these cobwebs with a torch. Because, you know, that's what torches do. Instead, I need to select my brush. That's fucking bullshit. It might just be me, but this mission triggered a phenomenon that I suffered from in this era of games, where I get the point of what this level wants me to do, but the game insists I keep doing the thing. What's the thing in this case? You have to collect a bracelet and a necklace for each statue, and this unlocks the door to progress. But to get to each one requires some pixel hunting and trial and error. And this. Yeah, you see it, right? So obvious that this was here. This was an hour of my life, this spot, right here. I could have been doing anything with my life. No, I was busy walking by this bullshit spot, trying not to get killed by death traps that are clearly displayed on the floor. Back to the thing. What's another way to describing what I mean? It's worn out its welcome. In this stage, nothing of real value is gained. It's a retread of a map with added nonsense to pad out the runtime. Eventually you reach the end.
The veil of reality can only be pulled back so far, mortal. Take your stand and fight the darkness.
Using the Dispel magic spell you learned in the last chapter, you were able to move on to Chapter 7.
And even risk their lives for a glimpse of the hallowed relic's true splendor. Of course, it would be wise to keep quiet during your stay. The Inquisition is here for a reason, brother.
Dude, do you think that monk is evil? Of all the dudes I feel sorry for, Paul is clearly such a stand-up guy, and he really gets the shaft here. I was waiting for something here on my replay of the game. I don't have a ton of distinct memories, but this guy getting murked hard at the end was certainly one of them. I was disappointed at the fact he did not die as I recalled, and it bothered me for a little bit. I remember a really tall monster stepping on him and turning him into a fine paste.
We will dispose of him ourselves.
Was I wrong? Or is the boss in this area based off of my decision during the prologue? The answer is the latter. Enjoy these demises.
We will dispose of him ourselves.
Fuck yeah. Get fucked. Oh, sorry. I don't know what came over me. While Paul's mission was far more tolerable than most, it continued to suffer some ambiguous and strange progression methods. Something that the game continues to add to irritate the hell out of me when I'm replaying it. I've forgotten to mention the trappers, which is a bizarre mechanic that, for a lack of better verbiage, is a sucking piece of fuck waste of time. Let's see how that turns out in post. The trappers are these little scorpion-shaped little nuisances that follow a stochastic path while asking the player to move around stealthily to avoid being sent to timeout mode, where you have a chance to regain health, sanity, or magic depending on which color of transporter you step on. It also has monsters in it, sometimes. How do you know? You don't. It's random. It's annoying, and you will be sent to timeout many, many times. I always give myself credit to trailblaze new ideas. So I assume that this was an attempt to give the player a means to avoid a fail state of a lack of resources if things go bad. But my god, there are just way too many of these things. And just listen to this shit. After Paul is served up a la mode, you return to play the piano to get the next chapter rolling. Here, Roberto is tasked with surveying the damage done underground in an attempt to prolong his life, and for the game to prolong its runtime, with nearly utterly pointless backtracking.
Venture no further, or be struck down where you stand.
What?
I am the guardian of this temple, the Forbidden City. None shall enter except the chosen. Speak. You are the chosen one! For many years I have tested those who came here, and all have failed. You are unaffected by the power I wield, and thus must surely be the chosen.
I'm coming!
And what news do you bring me, Architect?
The foundations are infested. Demons and devils. Many lives will be lost if you try to build there.
You have done well to complete your goal, Bianchi. The construction will continue as planned.
But the demons! You'd be insane to build there.
Silence, dog! What dwells beneath the Forbidden City is the very reason it was built. Now you, Architect, you are about to make your largest contribution to this project.
Well, looks like Roberto's fate is cemented. What? Not much is to be seen here, and even when you finish this chapter, your only ability to carry over to Alex is literally a button press away to survey the room. Color me irritated. And we reach chapter 9, also known as Trevelyan's Meltdown. Holy fucking shit, does this level irritate me. Okay, let's stay subjective here. You start things off with wandering around aimlessly until you finally stumble on this letter with orders addressed to you. You need to select this in front of the correct soldier to get the game actually running. You see, the game doesn't really do the best job of leading the player to certain actions and directions, at least not in my opinion. And it certainly does not imply that you need to play the organ to progress either, or that this room and the cathedral were added in this hallway centuries later, for reasons. The chain of actual progression is as follows. You need to reveal this door, but you can't go through the door because it doesn't have a door handle. That's because that's how doors work, right? Doors just don't swing open when there's no hardware in it. But to do that, you need a 7-point spell. To find that spell, you need to go into a room that's blocked by a corpse. To get past the corpse, you need to send a trapper through the hole in the wall to make the body disappear. To make it disappear, you need to target it and not just use what looks like an AoE attack, or you just wasted your time. It's just a game, that's fine, stay calm. So to get the door open, you need the door handle. It's opened up via the organ. You need to power the building so the organ works. When you get to the fuse box, the game says that the fuse is missing and there's no sign of where it could be. Where is the fuse? It doesn't exist. The fuse has been with us the whole time. That's right, a fucking penny in your pocket to support an entire cathedral. Oh god, I was so pissed when I discovered that this is how you are supposed to progress. While it is remotely, and I checked on this, remotely possible for a penny to act as a fuse, it is still the most horseshit thing this stage has to offer for the next 8 minutes, simply due to the wordings of this interaction. How about, there is no fuse anywhere, so I might need to improvise, or I sure could use some luck, or how about anything other than what's used? Oofda, I say. Okay, so we're all caught up on the moon logic progression. Now let's talk about the boss I fought, the Guardian of Zeloth. See, I never fought this guy before. On my first playthrough back in 2002, I fought the tower-looking motherfucker, and did not remember fighting for 15 minutes straight without any progress. Maybe I got lucky, or maybe that boss was programmed. I didn't skip over any words. I mean, this boss is broken. Let's dive into my world of gaming for a minute, so you might understand my frustration. See, I can take a hint. When you shoot this thing, and a cutaway occurs telling you blatantly, guns don't work. So using the Legend of Zelda logic, I know that what I just unlocked was the magic attack spell. So I use it to damage the boss. I note that this only seems to work when it's doing this recharge animation, for whatever reason that may be, but I can manage. Now, on to the second phase. Here is where the game breaks. If you stand too close to the boss, and I really want you to pay attention to this fact, if you're too close, it will perpetually slam magic attacks on your position, and it will not stop. Okay, but when you step away further than this point, zombies will spawn, draining your sanity meter higher than you can recover by killing all 3 with finishing attacks. But it's also at this range, the boss will still send magic attacks at you in addition. So that range doesn't work either, because at best, it still doesn't do its animation to signal vulnerability. That only occurs at long range, where the zombies get spawned, and no attacks are sent towards you. But casting the magic attack, I think, doesn't hurt this thing. I don't see any feedback. The magic attacks will hit the zombies, and it sends a current to the boss. But does it hurt? No. No, it doesn't. And at this range, the zombies can ping you multiple times before they even reach you, draining your sanity and then your health rather quickly. I spent 30 minutes on this fight. I was in full sunken cost fallacy mode. I replayed the fight to see if I had softlocked myself somehow. Nope. I just missed this pixel that you need to stand on. See, the magic attacks have a total range on it, despite this feedback looking like it reaches the boss. So the answer is to stand at this specific range where the camera change occurs. Here, and only here, does this game both allow you to cast the spell within range, and the boss goes into its animation that makes it vulnerable. Where does that bleep button again? There it is. Whoever designed this boss battle can suck the whitest part of my tiny you f***ing rat bastards. It felt good. Alright, now that we've reached stage 3 of the boss, what kind of nonsense do we have now? Oh, dodge his attacks again? But doesn't he... Oh, he goes into the animation now. That's not my hands clapping, that's me and your fucking mom. Holy shit, like, PTSD aside, the dude lives a full life. Maybe you should have thought of unloading that artifact a couple of decades sooner. So during my replay, I took a few days off after this, thinking that I was rushing through too quickly and becoming impatient. But it's the next mission that I replayed that I reaffirmed my earlier gripes. The game certainly has some blatant pacing issues as it progresses. Playing as Edward, Alex's grandfather, you quickly arm up and are forced through a strange sequence through some in-game insinuation that, personally, I felt was not communicated to the player well. You need to locate whatever room that this monster is located in and start bashing. He'll escape to the totem to recharge, and after a short time, he'll reappear elsewhere, only to rinse and repeat until he drops a part of a key to the basement door. Why does no one that lives here have a key to their own basement? Once you fight the monster here, you have unlimited health until you smash its totem, revealing the sub-levels for you to traverse. It's here where the game breaks down to pure, unadulterated monotony, fighting mini-bosses in nearly every room where they slowly move each time they're shot. How slow? You can watch and decide. You find your way to this contraption, what I am dubbing the groaning generator. You need to select one of 7 parts of a spell in each overhead tower and be warped into an area to fight and flee from more enemies. You then have to trek all the way back and repeat this process. It's bad, dude. There's no excuse for this kind of sequence outside of wasting the player's time. It's confounded by even more tedium. Some of the rooms have trappers inside, forcing you to waste even more time, either by sneaking around or getting trapped, or both. There's always a way for this game to steal a bit of my life yet. Once you think you have all 7 sections done, psych, you need to go back again and adjust the ruins to match what the game wants out of you. My advice? Game facts all the way. This area is bad enough with its strange usage of the locale. That took 20 takes, and that was the best one. But anyway, It's honestly cheaply done as well. When things are reaching a crescendo, you're only treated to a silent camera shake to imply things are going south. Hopefully someone was fired for that blunder. 2 Simpsons references within 20 seconds. Woo! I think I might be kind of hard on this, but the fact is we are yet again still in the era of development thought processes that still has the mindset of longer game equals good. Thank God we are so past that, meow. Alright, just gotta open this safe. Remember, turn the knob to the right for the first number, then left. But do I press right or left to turn the knob right? Is this what they meant by left and right? Welcome to my nightmare each and every time I do one of these.
Get your team to a safe distance and we'll try to kill the fire.
Sure thing. Coming back now.
We're getting a pressure increase at the well cap. It's gonna tear itself apart. Hurry! Get your team out of...
The last chapter features a ripped firefighter brandishing an axe. Even without it being enchanted, it makes short work of most of the enemies in this area, letting you get some aggression out of the mobs of zombies. There's not much else to say about this, as we've already trekked through this here as Roberto, and it's just another rehash. Once you acquire the blasting caps and dynamite, you go to destroy the Tower of Corpses, but not before enchanting the dynamite. Now it's really going to fuck shit up. Here, we escape the area as it's crumbling. It's only right now, as I was drafting this garbage, that a thought had occurred to me. Why is everything collapsing before the bomb goes off? Are the ruins sentient and can anticipate an enchanted C4 set to a 3-minute timer? Fuck it. Now that we have a crank, we can actually do something with this room. Alex can traverse to the underground to thwart Pius. Now we just gotta... Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So here we are on the final stretch. We need to do the same bullshit as before, but now with added nonsense of casting various spells to remind you that these spells are in your book. You need to cast Shield at least 5 to 6 times to retrek through this already tedious area, along with the 3 summoning spells. It's so tedious at this point that it was becoming painful for me. You need to sprint around the room to recharge your magic due to the high requirements of some of these summons, because longer equals better. At least that's what I'm told. Once you assign all of your runes appropriately to the walkthrough I read because I'm not wasting a second more on this horse shit, you arrive at the central chamber for your final confrontation.
Ah, Miss Rivers, you're just in time. The summoning spell I began 2,000 years ago is finally complete. You will now have the honor of becoming the first morsel for my Lady Zelatoft. An appetizer for the banquet your race shall provide.
You forget what it means to be human, Pius. The human race will never go quietly into the darkness. For as long as you have spent summoning your lord, people have struggled against you. Now, thanks to their efforts, I have 3 of the Ancient's essences. Now, Pius, this is the end!
The end indeed.
I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't follow what's going on here. For having all 3 essences is one thing, but you left all those behind on those pedestals. What difference does that have on anything? The final fight is pretty simple. Pius just waltzes up and tries to smack up Alex, whom only needs to enchant a weapon and plug him once, and then the sigil here will appear. Once this is done enough times, everyone that is trapped in the Chamber of Screaming arrives to lend a spiritual hand. Once you've rotated enough through the cast, Pius goes to stage 2, which lets you blow his fucking face off with a shotgun, which is always welcome. Once you finish him off, and the anime battle between the Supreme Beings is done, your final task is to pick the rune to seal the monster away. Don't pick the wrong one. Just kidding. The game just scolds you mildly until you pick the right one. Gameplay. Thus ends a thoroughly mediocre crescendo. Like most of my dates, it ended a lot sooner than either of us anticipated, and I found my money lying on the dresser drawer. What? This game, along with Resident Evil 1 and 4, showcases just how amazing that little fucker was for graphical prowess. Right out of the gate, you're witness to, at the time, great facial expressions, smooth frame rates, and a general high level of detail that you just didn't see much in that era. As mentioned, I'm playing on a CRT with a video input, which gives these older games so much more believability. Looking at these old consoles now over YouTube never does the original experience justice. But given how difficult it is to set up this monster, I can forgive anyone for foregoing that for playing these games via Best Buy. The audio does some cool stuff here thanks to Dolby surround sound. Nothing here is going to blow your pants off in this department, as we are still in the stone age of sound design. Once again, you are subjected to a miasma of stock sound effects that are a tad muffled, at least from what I can still hear. Some of the soundtracks are quite moody, along with one outlying banger of a track that I threw onto YouTube for shits and giggles. The boss battle music was also nicely bombastic, and managed to sound good for the first 20 minutes of fighting the same boss indefinitely. The voice acting is decent. Alex, unfortunately, is pretty rough around the edges, but the main antagonist does a great job of vocalizing general assholery. With a wide variety of characters, the actors do an overall pretty decent job keeping everyone unique to each other, with some characters managing to even draw you in to them briefly before they are fucked over by fate. The game has a very unique control scheme. To any type of survival horror experience, if you want to classify this game as such, which I guess it isn't, you have free reign to control in any direction with smooth inputs of the left analog stick and sprint with the left trigger. Right trigger both selects from multiple targets and readies your selected weapon, targeting the vitals of each opponent. The awkwardness ensues with minigames, where you have to use the Y and X buttons along with A, thanks to Nintendo's insufferable need to make their controllers as weird as possible. Finding these buttons can take some getting used to. The fabled insanity effect is used well with this camera, twisting the FOV to make some challenges harder and to fuck with your head, obviously. The means that this system is implemented is not well utilized, however, as I assume many others have pointed out. The issue starts with the fact that the combat is generally very simple, and killing enemies is usually what you'll need to do regardless of any situation. Doing so recovers the insanity meter lost by discovering the enemies, meaning you generally won't see too much of the fun stuff unless you try to avoid combat. This remains true for the first third of the game, as the combat gets trickier as things progress. Unfortunately, a lot of the reasons this game has any real difficulty is in the mechanics not working well, such as bullshit camera angles, stun locking, and other jank that reminds you that this is the early 2000s, baby. I'm sure balancing this was difficult, but as an armchair developer, I would have suggested to do the opposite. That killing enemies outright depletes the sanity meter, discouraging you from killing everything you see, bolstering the difficulty in a far less artificial way than what was used here. But I'm just a sweaty nerd in a room somewhere, so take that advice with a grain of salt, AAA developer from 23 years ago. Also unique to this game is the magic system. By collecting runes, you're able to piece together spells to do various tasks and make combat much more interesting. Personally, I hate the way that it's implemented, but appreciate the effort nonetheless. So what do I mean by that? See, the game is right at the tail end of the Wild West days of gaming. As I've mentioned many times, including the Fade to Black review, a lot of games from the old times attempted to pad their runtime with bullshit deaths, pointless interfaces, obtuse goals, and backtracking endlessly. Thankfully, this game doesn't have those bullshit deaths. The rune system has some great ideas. Basically, to learn a spell, you need to collect artifacts that both represent the rune itself, one that identifies what the rune does, one that puts the spells on paper, and an element representing the spell itself. This makes for a lot of combinations and a lot of hassle in the menus until you get used to it. And this, for whatever reason, is something I could never get used to in this game. The menus are a pain in the ass and are made to be gone through constantly despite their best efforts to put in quick slots. While quick slotting the spells can be good for a few go-tos, there's a magnitude of combinations of the game's spells due to the element system in place, basically emulating the rock, paper, scissors mechanic. You want to counter whatever element the monster is that you're fighting, and you have 12 spells to unlock, and this will multiply the spells available to around 128. So in a nutshell, you need to go into the menu a lot to cast the specific spell for each unique situation. And that's fine, but why in the shitting ass, when I collected the scroll for healing, for example, do I need to inspect that same scroll, deduce the combination again, and add a couple of new runes manually for every spell whenever I get an upgraded path? Because padded runtime, baby. Eternal Darkness was a visual masterpiece in its time. A ton of innovative ideas were put on a canvas, and unique stories were told quite effectively. There are some bumps in the roads, to be sure, but those are but minor gripes compared to the big picture, especially in 2002. The game does seem to drag on a bit, especially later on when you realize you've been at these locations before. And yes, it's a different century every time, but our gamer instincts have been more than acquainted with recycling up to this point, and solving the same basic puzzles over and over becomes tiresome. This was a very mature game for its time as well, with some really unexpected moments thrown in when you least expect it. Did I really write that? And let's not forget those memorable psych outs, my favorite being the game soft locking. I tell you, nothing is scarier than losing your progress, and this game got me again. This fly in a TV is incredibly convincing on my real 8,000-pound tube TV. I wonder how good it would look on your phones. Was it a great revisit? Not really, to be honest. While I love the effort put into this game, there was never a point where I was really grabbed or felt for any of the characters. This might be just a character flaw in myself, as I don't like narrative drives that introduce so many characters like this. Give me God of War with Kratos and the boy going back and forth for hours on end. By the time I even got a glimmer of appreciation for this guy, he gets turned into a fine paste. Alex in particular gives me zero motivations to continue playing. But goddamn, they did nail that walk cycle. That reminds me, my watch has stopped. Thank you for watching my video. I had a multitude of technical problems to go along with this, along with getting robbed. I was just moving. So hopefully I will get through this readout without any problems. But first, some corrections and missed people. Steve McSticky, Devin Dagnall. Please let me know if I butchered it again. Gramneath, 1982. Now onto the new public subscribers. We're almost to 1,000. Holy shit. Alright, here we go. 1456 Dock Builder. Aaron, Aiden Ortega, Alex L, A Little Snow Fairy Saga, An Arcane Observer, Andrew Gares, Arrow Bow, Austin Black, Ben Schulz, Berserk 33, Bigfoot Alley, Brandon Clifton, Captain Coolio, Chris D. Is he related to Chris R. from The Room? Colin Tortoise, Corsair Carl, Cosmic Mud, Cristobal Priere, Dark Coefficient, Davy Jones, Death Sandals, Derek Washuk, Dirk Hanberg, Doodoo Snowballs, El Cumbo, Evie Vivu, Falling Star, Flowers in a Basket, F Pop, Jeff Salee, Gerald Kina, Goose Howard, Grim Sandwich, Grizzly Slug Heart Peace Symbol, Adonima, Harry Turtleneck, Hot Dog Day 89. IG Commissaire Jake. The best I can do. Iggy 12. Ivan Jovarich. Ivan Wojtik. JC. Jack Tyrer. John Veal. Jig Lord. John Ono. John McKinks. Johnny St. Clair. Jonathan H. May. Jared 2112. Juicebox Kids 23. Urian 20XX. Carter Blackpaul. Kickboxing Breakdowns. Kimber Custom Pro 1911. Lawrence Bennett, Louis Hughes, Luisto, Machine Heart, Maximilian Noel, Mike Church, Neil, Nicholas Wolfshire III, Nintendo82, NJP2K9, Alivdo SDO, best I can do, P did Patrick Madden, Patrick McQuaid, Professor Mark Q, Ray Danger, Riley Wilson, Rogue Saber, SB Link 4, Scott O, as in Odie, Senora Macho Solo, Cephist, Silly Happy, Sir Ethan the Great, Sherpy Doodle, Sunlake, Stink Banana, Strickland, Swolly, Tal Klieger, Teddy's, The Monarch, The Vardan, The Arkham Jester, The K-Sax, The Revenge of Cat 57, Tom Coe, Toxic Lemons, Tough, Unfunded Cheese, Uptown 710, Various Light, Video Lover 7, Vladmito, Woo Kid 1979, Winter TV, Zraz Rekem, best I can do, Zeno, Bisavno, House Symbol, Thank you all for subscribing, and I am extremely excited to be nearing the 1,000 counter. I just don't know how to react with this other than saying thanks. And I really wondered if there was a God all along, and now I know there is, and it's me. Soon I will have all the hot dogs, all of them.
Oh, I've been robbed.